So with this, we have talked about development of male gametophyte, development of the female gametophyte. The development of the male gametophyte begins with the pollen grain formation in the anther, and the development of the female gametophyte occurs inside the ovule. So now there is a need that if you want double fertilization to take place, both of them should come together. To understand this, we know sperm production occurs in the testes. Ovum is produced in the ovaries. So you need coitus, sexual intercourse, to bring these two gametes together. In the similar manner, in plants, there is a process which is called as pollination, where there is a transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma. Now, depending upon how many flowers are involved, how many plants are involved, you have got different type of pollinations and different agencies which aid in this mechanism of pollination. So let us briefly see the different types called autogamy, geitonogamy, and xenogamy. So this is a plant with a flower having both stamen as well as the carpel. So now in this case, there is transfer of pollen grain from the anther to the stigma of the same flower. So this is a type of self-pollination where ecologically only one flower is used. Genetically, it is only one flower belonging to the same plant. Same plant. So autogamy comes under a type called self-pollination. Sometimes self-pollination, we use of the word autogamy as a synonym for self-pollination. Then, if you observe this second type, I have one plant and now I'm showing two flowers, but on the same plant. And there's a transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of another flower, but belonging to the same plant. So two flowers. So ecologically it is cross pollination, but they belong to the same plant. So genetically it is self pollination. So this is called geitonogamy, where geton means a neighbor. Gamy means marriage. So it's a marriage with a neighboring flower. And the third type, that is xenogamy, it involves two different plants but belonging to the same species. So it is ecologically and genetically a type of cross pollination. And when the pollination involves more than one flower, you always require some agents or agencies which will help in this mechanism of pollination. And these agents, if they are non-living, they are called abiotic. The living agents are called biotic. The abiotic agents include wind and water. The biotic agents can be different animals. Pollination with the help of wind is called anemophily. With the help of water, it is called hydrophily. And pollination in general by animals is called as zoophily. If it occurs with the help of insects, it is called entomophily. If it occurs with the help of birds, it is called ornithophily. If it occurs with the help of bats, it is called chirapterophily. And so on and so forth. You have different types of pollinating agents amongst the animals. So if you talk about the anemophily and an anemophilous flower, we know that the wind is an abiotic agent and it does not need to get attracted. So the flower is not going to waste its energy on making itself attractive or conspicuous, meaning easily seen. Okay, neither it is going to put its energy in developing fragrance or nectar because they are irrelevant for the wind. Rather than that, it will show some adaptations which will help the dispersal of a large quantity of pollen grains from that particular flower because wind as an agent can move in any direction. So it is not very sure shot where the wind is going to flow. So in order to increase the probability of pollination to occur successfully, the plant ensures it by producing a large number of pollen grains. And some other uh, modification of the pollen grain is it is going to be dry and non-sticky, small and lightweight, so that it can be easily carried with the wind. And also remember that if you see this particular diagram over here, kids, then the accessory whorls in the form of calyx and corolla are highly reduced. Many of them, like the ones belonging to the family Poaceae, they show the presence of fusion of calyx and corolla, that is called as the perianth. And because of the reduction in the accessory whorls, like the calyx and the corolla, you get anthers which are well exposed so that the wind can carry the pollen grains. Many a times, the filament is connected to the anther only at a point, so that even if there is a slight breeze, the anther will move and will help in the dispersal of the pollen grains. Such an anther is called as a versatile anther. Also, look at the stigma, right? The stigma is also well exposed, right? And it's a feathery stigma. So remember this point. It's a well exposed and it's a feathery stigma so that it can easily catch the pollen grains which are dispersed into the wind current. Generally, the ovary will have a single ovule. Generally, the ovary will have a single ovule, and many flowers called florets will be packed together in a large inflorescence. So there will be many flowers which will be packed together, florets in a large inflorescence, and every floret will have a single ovule in a single ovary. A good example that we can give over here is the maize plant or the corn cob. Okay, where in the male plant you have the female flowers which are packed together, and you have the stigma. At the top, we have the male flowers in the inflorescence. Actually, the male mature first, so it will prefer cross pollination. But अगर वो टाइम पे तक उसका stigma is still mature, it will go for gynogamy. Hydrophily, that is the pollination with the help of water. It is not common in angiosperms. Here, the trick and a trap is remember for fertilization, angiosperms are not dependent upon water at all. whereas algae, bryophytes are depend upon water as a mode of transfer for gametes. But angiosperms have reduced their dependency upon the water for fertilization. So pollination के लिए, for pollination, angiosperms can use water for pollination. But for fertilization, no, not at all. For pollination also, it is not a commonly found phenomenon. It is rarely found in few monocots, only up to 30 genera of monocots. And hydrophilous flower, just like an animalphilous flower, does not spend a lot of energy on being attractive. So these flowers are going to be colorless, odorless, nectarless, and small. But their pollen grains will be produced in large amount. They will be light in weight. They'll be covered by mucilage that will protect the decomposition of the pollen grains in water. And in some cases, the exine is absent, but it is covered by a mucilage. Now, here we have got two types of hydrophyty. Like this is water. If the pollination occurs within the water, it is called hypohydrophily. If it occurs at the top of the water, it is called epihydrophily. Epihydrophily is found in freshwater submerged hydrophytes like Vallisneria and Hydrilla. Okay, Hydrilla can also show the second type, that is hypohydrophily, which is pollination under the surface of the water, that is shown by Zostera marina. Now, let us understand Vallisneria and its epihydrophily. So, here in Vallisneria, which is commonly called as ribbon weed, it's a dioecious plant with male and female separate. So, the female plant produces a female flower on a coiled stalk. But at maturity, the coiled stalk becomes straight and the female flower is brought at the surface of the water. Nearby, we have got male plants with the male inflorescence. At maturity, it releases the male flowers which float at the surface of the water. Because of surface tension, there's a concave meniscus around the female flower. One of the floating male flowers will fall in that meniscus. Anther will dehesize. Pollen grains will fall on the stigma. Pollination will take place above the surface of the water, which is called as epihydrophily. Once again, the stage stalk will become coiled and fruit setting will occur within the water. So that is how it shows epihydrophily. In the beginning only we have said that angiosperms are not dependent upon water for fertilization. Only small genera of monocots, about 30 genuses, are dependent upon water for pollination. And many of the water aquatic plants are not even hydrophilous. So if you look at these examples of what we have mentioned, water lily, nymphea, lotus, that is nelumbo, water hyacinth, that is ecornia, all these are beautiful colored flowers blooming at the surface of the water. So definitely they will be pollinated by the zoophilous agents. Like in most the cases, it is going to be entomophily. There is a pollination brought about by the agency of insects. Now, the insect pollinated flowers, we need to understand this that as compared to anemophily, insect pollination is a more sure shot method. But then you have to ensure that the insect visits your flower for nectar. So you have to attract the insects. For that flower has to be large. If the flower is small, it should be grouped into an inflorescence. The flowers should be colorful. They should produce nectaries. Either it can have a good fragrance or a bad odor because flies and beetles they are attracted towards bad odor. The pollen grains are sticky with a mucilage layer so that these pollen grains can stick to the bodies of those insects. And maximum pollination among insects is done by honeybees, where 80% of insect pollination is done by honeybees. Okay. Then, to give you specific examples, there's a plant which is called yucca plant, which is pollinated by a pronuba insect called yucca moth. And the symbiotic relationship between the two that we study in mutualism in organisms and population. In Rafflesia, which gives out a foul odor and the smell, it is pollinated by a type of flies called Korean flies. Carrion fly, that is actually. These insects need to be rewarded. Then only they'll come to the flower to bring about pollination. So, what are the different rewards that a flower can give to the insect? Either it could be nectar or pollen grains to eat, or in the case of yucca moth, the egg laying sites to ensure that yucca eggs will hatch. Yucca insects, pronoba insects, eggs will hatch to form the larva within the ovary of the yucca flower. And in return, yucca flower will get pollinated. So that is how it works.